Welcome back everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program Better Than Ever. Now in the previous episode we left it on somewhat of a cliffhanger. We have 90.1 science, which is enough to get just one more of these parts. Now we could get advanced construction, which contains these larger Rockamux parts, a wide range of aerodynamic parts, some control parts including RCS. We could get some electrical parts including the cannot do without photovoltaic panel, some space exploration parts including a thermometer, and landing gear. Now it was a bit of a toss-up, but I've decided we can't do without our electrics. So let's research and purchase those parts and head on out to the Space Centre to see how it's getting along. Well, here we are outside of KSC and it doesn't look particularly advanced, does it? But that's because we haven't researched any of the buildings. Building research, if you right click on a building, allows you to upgrade the building. Now we're at facility level 1, you can see there in the middle, and it will support vehicles of up to 30 parts. But if we hover over the upgrade cost of 315,000 funds, you can see that the maximum number of parts supported goes up to 255, and we now get basic action groups. But we can upgrade other buildings. So for example, to give Jean a bigger building, the upgrade cost is 48,000 funds. We have 48,000 funds, we could do that upgrade. And the max active contracts would go up to 7, but we don't get the further upgrade unless we also upgrade the tracking station. So what's the tracking station upgrade, you might ask? Well, for 210,000 funds, we can get patched conics visible in the map. In other words, if you combine both of those two upgrades together, you get maneuver nodes. Now, we don't have that much money, because if we're going to upgrade the launch pad, we need 78,000 funds to get much bigger and heavier vehicles. So we need a new strategy. So let's go to the administration building. Back in the administration building, we can see that we still have our outsourced R&D in effect, and that's consuming 25% of our funds income, but yielding a heck of a lot of science. But it's not really science that we need at this point. So let's cancel that strategy and have a look at the remaining strategies that we could use. Now we could, obviously, raise some funds. Now fundraising campaigns takes 5% of our reputation and yields 7.1 funds, but we're not actually getting that much reputation for these early contracts. Patents licensing takes 5% of our science gains and yields funds, but again without outsourced R&D, our early contracts aren't actually earning that much science. So let's have a look at operations. Now we could just fit transponders. The problem with fitting transponders that although you will get 5.5% of your vessel recovery factor increased, in other words, you'll get more money back when you land a vehicle back on Kerbin and recover it, we're not actually recovering very much of our vehicles. So the other option is aggressive negotiations. This gives us cheaper launching and R&D purchases, but does rather reduce the amount of reputation we're getting with each discount that we have. This seems probably the best choice at this point. So let's commit ourselves 25%, and you can see now we are getting just over 10%. We're getting 13.5% funds off our launch costs, so we should make a little bit more profit per mission. And I suggest we get Bill and Bob on the job to do a series of commercial launches, simply to earn us some funds. So once that's been done, we'll come back and see what other missions we can get Jeb to do out in the near solar system. I'll see you soon. Well, welcome back everyone. Bill, Bob and Jeb have been very busy over the last few days running a whole series of purely commercial contracts, earning a large sum of funds, some science and a healthy amount of reputation. But not all the contracts have been so generous. Some of them have been relatively small and earned us only a tiny amount of reputation. Now you'll know our strategy is aggressive negotiations. And the problem there is that we're losing 55 reputation for every contract that we complete. So this one was neutral in terms of reputation, but others were a severe disappointment, and we have lost a lot of reputation with our suppliers. On the other hand, they have been very generous with funds, and we now have, I think, enough to upgrade a couple of our facilities. We've also been earning a handy amount of science, and we'll spend that in the science building later. But let's have a look at upgrading our launch pad. For 78,000 funds, we'll get much bigger and much taller launch vehicles. So that's money well spent. Similarly, if we right-click the vehicle assembly building, for a hefty 315,000, we can get considerably more complicated vehicles and basic action groups. So let's upgrade that. Now, of course, the next thing I think we need to do is sort out our reputation. In other words, sort out our strategy. So let's head over to the administration building and do just that. Here in the administration building, we can see we have aggressive negotiations in place. So whilst that has been saving funds from launch costs and R&D purchases, it has been costing us a lot of reputation. And this is one of the strategies that you can actually lose with. Most strategies are just a proportion of your fund cost in this case, or a proportion of your science. But this is a fixed amount of reputation, so if you do a contract that earns you less than 55 reputation, you will actually lose overall reputation. So let's cancel that strategy. Now in the meantime, we do have a lot of science. So we're not going to be needing a lot of science from our next few missions. So let's have a look at patents licensing. This will take 5% of our science gains, so we will simply gain less science, but we will get 8.1 funds for each 1 unit of science. Now if we increase our commitment, you can see that now increases to 25% of our science gains will yield 8.5 funds for each science, and we'll spend 776 to set it up. So let's accept that strategy and head on over to the Science Centre with our slightly less science and purchase some more upgrades. Here we are in the labs, and the boys have been working hard preparing some of their research projects. Now we have 797.5 science to spend, and with only a few of these top level items to research, I think we can actually research them all. So let's start with stability for 18 science, advanced rocketry for 45 science, and then let's have a look at some of these other items. We have heavy rocketry, which gives us some of these much larger parts, which will certainly be useful for launching the larger vehicles. Larger fuel tanks and decouplers. Aerodynamics will give us a lot of aeroplane parts, including jet engines, intakes, wing parts and so on. Advanced control is useful for thrusters. We even have an inline cockpit, another command module, RCS tanks and so on. Space exploration. Now this does give us this large mobile processing lab, ladders, but it does give us a thermometer. We will definitely be having that one. And landing. Landing's always a good part of our missions. So we have mini landing struts and wheels for aeroplanes. So let's research these items. Let us get our aerodynamics so we can build some of the planes, so we can complete plane contracts. And finally, heavy rocketry. Now, we still have plenty of funds, so we should be able to buy most of the parts, but let's concentrate on the key parts. So let's purchase the thermometer. We definitely need landing gear. We already have electrics. Advanced flight control. Well, that's actually probably not the best group of parts to get, so let's get aerodynamics and we'll come back to flight control because we're chewing through our funds. Advanced construction probably goes with heavy rocketry, so let's get our heavy rocketry as well. And then we have to remember to go back and get our advanced rocketry. This particular fuel tank will save us on some parts. And right down here in stability, this winglet and nose cone might come in handy, so we'll take those as well. So what do we have left? We've got wheels, we've got our space exploration, we already have electrics, advanced flight control, 51,000 funds. Let's spend the money. And I think that's now everything. So you'll notice we now can't research anything more because we need to upgrade the science centre and get them better equipment. And that needs more funds. We still have some science, but we can't spend it. So I think we need to head over and see Gene and pick on a particularly tricky contract. Now, Jeb, Bill and Bob already have one active contract remaining, and we can see from this how our new strategy is working. Now, in this particular contract, we have to test the hydraulic detachment manifold when splashed down. Under normal circumstances, we'd have got slightly less funds, but because of our contract, we're getting 64 extra funds, but sacrificing 8 science. But we can also do something a little more interesting than that. We can see that Gene is definitely excited about exploring the Mun. Now, one of the features of exploring the Mun, apart from simply achieving orbit, transmitting science from in orbit, landing, it's a good thing we've got the landing legs, and then transmitting or recovering from the surface, we don't have maneuver nodes. So we're going to have to do all of this by hand. So let's accept that contract and get started. Now, in our shiny new vehicle assembly building, I think we should sort out this last commercial contract first. Now, in this case, we have to test the hydraulic detachment manifold splashdown at Kerbin. Now, we're not exactly splashdown just yet, so we'll ignore that. But what we need to do is to perform a test. We need to activate the part through staging when all conditions are met. So let us get a command pod for Jeb to do the testing. Let us get ourselves, we only need to splash down. So let us use one of the cheap and cheerful boosters. We need to get parachutes so that Jeb will get down safely. So let's put parachute on the top there. Now we need the hydraulic detachment manifold, which I think is somewhere in here. There we go, hydraulic detachment manifold. Now I'll have 2 of those just to make sure the craft is balanced. Oh, picked up a Rockomax brand decoupler, put that back. Right, there we go. Oh, doesn't it look nice and shiny? Nice and tall as well. Perfect. Right. Now, if we drag our Kerbal Engineer out of the way, we've got plenty of Delta V in this vehicle, so I think we just need to sort out our staging. So let's get our test parts here at the top. And check that, so that's engine, parachute, and when we're splashed down. So I think we're ready to go. Okay, so Jeb is in the hot seat for this mission, and all we are going to do is basically fly to splashdown. So let's get the T key on, let's launch away. There's no throttle in this case. Let's just point the pointy end towards the ocean in this case, and get ourselves ready to complete this splashdown mission. So we're about halfway through our fuel. Now there's something you don't see very often. The Sun, the Mun and Minmus. I think we will send that to mission control. Don't know what happened over here. Did we lose a part? Don't think so. But let's now get ready for splashdown. So let's turn ourselves around. Let's open our parachutes. Let's get the T key off. Just let gravity do its thing. Now our next mission is to the Mun. And we don't have maneuver nodes. To get maneuver nodes, you need to upgrade both mission control and the tracking center. And we need a vast quantity of funds to do that. But we do have a great opportunity here for adventure. Now, to make that adventure a little bit more challenging, we're going to employ TAC life support to make sure Jeb and the boys always have sufficient fuel, food. I hope they have efficient fuel for other reasons. But we're also going to implement remote tech in order to ensure our satellites are always kept well under control. So that should introduce a bit more challenge and a bit more excitement. But we'll worry about that in the next mission. Now, we simply have to enjoy the sight and splash down. So we've got 180 meters to go, and once we've splashed down, we will be able to complete this first contract ready to explore the Mun. Not that this really helps us explore the Mun very much, but there we go, 100 meters, 5.8 meters per second, which is nice and safe. Splash down in 50 meters, 30, nice and gentle. There we go. Now we're splashed down. Let's launch the decouplers, the detachment manifolds, and complete that contract. So, with that rather trivial mission complete, let's look forward to the next episode. I'd like to thank you for watching, and hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.